I've come to the realization that we share a very strange relationship with traditional animation versus computer-generated animation. We tend to hold it higher in esteem, so much so that we can overlook a film's problems if the animation is good enough. I mean, this isn't any kind of new phenomena, and it certainly isn't exclusive to anime, but for a number of reasons, we seem to let the medium slide when it comes to pretty visuals over a compelling story, or even just a well-told story. Like, we're so inundated with near lifelike computer-generated animation and visual effects that we're no longer amazed by them. In fact, we sort of expect lifelike CG in our films nowadays. I'd wager that the last film to actually wow an audience with its CG was probably Avatar, and it didn't take long for that to wear off, exposing just how derivative and lame the story was. But anime, and by extension all of traditional animation, benefits from the fact that by its very definition, it just looks more impressive. Everything that we see in animation had to be drawn and measured by hand. There's no algorithm that dictates how someone's clothes are ripped or how this particular glass of water should shatter. It all has to be replicated by the human eye, mind, and intuition. Even when anime is cutting corners and using cheap tricks to fool the viewer, it still comes off as more of an accomplishment by comparison to computer-generated animation. Not to downplay the artistry of CG or to imply that it's inferior, but the fact remains that the process of CG animation is so far removed from the tangible process of putting pen to paper that people can't really connect to it the way they can with hand-drawn animation. I think this is the root of why I find CG in anime to be so terrible. I know why it exists, and I certainly know why studios do it, but every time I see it, it just eats away at me. To put it in perspective, the animation quality of the original Berserk television series was mediocre at best and distractingly lazy at worst, often resorting to still shots in place of actual animation, and yet I still prefer this over the slick, updated CG fest of the more recent films. I might feel differently if the films were all CG and that they kept a consistent art style throughout, but when it's paired up with the actual drawn characters, not only does it not mesh, but it actually kind of depresses me. Like, this is what your movie could have looked like, but instead it looks like this. But steering us back to the point at hand, a well-animated film can make up for a lot of its own deficiencies. But not all of them. It's immediately obvious that Spriggan is a beautifully made film, fluid in its motion, imaginatively rendered in its setting, and overall a spectacle to behold. It's certainly impressive on a technical scale. But, as a film, it's not good. Yup, this will be the second film in a row that, while pretty to look at, can't seem to tell its story without pissing its pants. Second verse, same as the first. Well, maybe not all the same. It's not nearly as memorable as Galaxy Express 39. Or as weird, or as good. We open with an expedition into some icy mountains where a couple of ice climbers come upon something that isn't Captain America. They're quickly dispatched, obviously being something man was not meant to disturb. And that reference would have been funnier if I could do a John Rhys Davies.
This ancient plate bears a warning to those of us who live today. From an unknown civilization that rose before the dawn of time and vanished into the distant reaches of eternity.
This is CNN.
Or a James Earl Jones, for that matter. The narrator goes on to explain that artifacts have been found all over the world, and a corporation named Arkham has been founded to keep these artifacts from public knowledge. Think the MIB for relics instead of aliens. We cut to our laughably generic-looking hero who's napping in class and dreaming of being in Predator, apparently.
Hey, are you trying to get left behind, you?
Hey, Brett Weaver doing Walla in an ADV dub. What are the odds? Of course the King of Walla would wind up in here somewhere. I'd be disappointed if he wasn't. So you know what? I'm gonna introduce a new feature on the show. It's called the Brett Weaver Counter. Guess what it counts?
First you miss weeks at school, and now you fall asleep in class. What's going on?
The movie doesn't kick in until you, that is, YU, notices one of his friends acting weird and meets him up on the single most overused setting in the history of anime, the school rooftop. Like, is this Japan's dedicated area for its students to gossip, have death battles, or makeout sessions? Or all three at the same time? In a truly bizarre series of events, his friend blows himself up, seemingly against his will, and then we cut immediately to Yu talking to his superior, asking why his friends are all being killed. Wait, what? What's happening? When did his other friends get killed? Fuck, I don't even know who this guy is!
It's not generally known.
But 6 months ago, an Arkham unit was wiped out at a research dig in Turkey.
Okay, and exactly how is that relevant?
Noah will be your grave. The research team found the Ark.
You mean the Old Testament, Noah?
Okay, stop the movie! Jesus, this movie goes about 1,000,000 miles an hour. We're still trying to piece together what the fuck is going on, and then all of a sudden the film dumps this Noah bombshell on us. Like, okay, I realize that this is supposed to be the plot, but a guy blew himself up while being mentally controlled. Priorities, assholes!
And what does all of this have to do with why my friends are being murdered?
I'm getting to that. For the last 3 weeks, I've been receiving reports that our search teams are being attacked and massacred at sites all over the world.
And apparently, these attacks are being led by the Heavy from Team Fortress 2. Now that he knows that shit is officially going down, Yu is on the murder mile and ain't no one gonna stop him.
Letting you go under these circumstances is far too risky.
Not half as risky as trying to stop me from going, Yamamoto. I'll do this with you or without you.
You!
Wonderful comeback, Potsy. Who's your writer, Bruce Valanche? So Yu flies into Turkey to investigate the claims that Arkham has found Noah's Ark, but first he has to deal with the welcoming party.
By the way, do those guys behind us happen to be friends of yours?
As a matter of fact, they are. Unfortunately for you, I'm afraid they are not your friends as well.
Gasp! How could... What's-his-face betray you like that? I was sure they were friends. Maybe... possibly... kind of. Of course, this leads to the first big action scene in the movie, and credit where credit is due, this is some fantastic-looking animation. The direction is crisp, the shots are ambitious, and marvelously executed, but the reasoning behind the fight is non-existent. We know nothing of why these guys are after Yu, or who they work for, nor will we ever learn. They're basically here to just be battle droids to use Qui-Gon Jinn. Oh, what the hell? Where did this guy come from? And how the hell did he know that Yu was going to be running down that particular alleyway and still have enough time to grab a fucking scimitar? Jesus! So he's also super strong too? Not even Steven Seagal's films make him look that strong, and that guy backhanded a dude through a credenza.
You idiots sure as hell aren't ready to take on a Spriggan.
Okay, you had the badass down until you had to mention your title. What the hell is a Spriggan anyway? Alright, let's see here. It was initially released as Striker in the North American English translation, as it is the English translation of the word Spriggan from Celtic. So they're not the asshole tree women from the Elder Scrolls, but rather strikers. I don't know, it just doesn't seem to have that same kind of feel, does it? I mean, would the X-Men be all that fearful of a guy named Colonel William Spriggan? So after a brief rundown of usabilities, which we should have gotten 10 minutes ago, we see... Wait, what the fuck? Eye shape slant? Okay, why would Yu's profile need to include his eye shape, and why must it be described using a racial insult? This is like if Al Simmons' profile had his generosity level, and it's listed under niggardly. Realizing that it's playing out faster than Farnsworth's career, the movie decides to pull the drag chute. Except now it's slow as frozen shit. There is a 5-minute traveling montage that is nothing but a series of establishing shots back to what sounds like a mid-90s softcore porno. This is my jam. You finally arrives at Arkham's Turkey base, but barely has any time to try out his new power suit before the crap hits the fan, in the form of Cyborg Vulcan Raven and Harpo, the madman ninja with razor wire. Because this character hasn't been seen in 80 fucking different animes, no siree.
Show us what you can really do. The way we taught you, you little snot. Damn you!
Oh, he is not done yet. Yu gets pushed to the limit as Vulcan Raven acts the dumbass and taunts the fact that he had his friend blow himself up, somehow, and now Yu sees the red mist and goes absolute ape shit. Not only does he slice off Raven's hand, then slash into his chest like a bandsaw through a cow carcass, but then mans an anti-aircraft gun mounted to a jeep, driven by no one, to literally reduce the guy to nothing. Ugh. Whew. And then he rips the gun off the jeep and would have used it to pound the remains into the fucking mountainside if it weren't for this French Spriggan stopping him and calming him down. Dude, what the fuck are you doing? You just stopped the greatest death scene in anime from happening. This is like if they ended Starface by cutting to black.
Do you want to play rough? Okay. Uno. Say hello to my little friend.
Ugh, God damn it. Even if you're a woman, you had to feel that blue ball and edit. The Frenchman reminds you that he shouldn't let his feelings get in the way of being a Spriggan, which I remind you are corporate assassins that could bench press a humpback whale. This isn't exactly the Jedi Order here. Nevertheless, with Raven disposed of and Harpo captured, it seems that the research team has some time to actually study the Ark. Until...
Lay down your weapons and surrender. There will be no resistance.
Oh no. Yup, this is our villain, Colonel McDougal. And as you can see, the Tetsuo is strong with this one. Hell, he even kinda looks like one of the blue children from Akira. But ADV, in their infinite wisdom, decided to cast an actual child actor for the role of Colonel McDougal. And he is god-awful. I mean, I can't really fault the kid, he can't help sounding the way he does, and I know that the character looks young, but there's nothing stipulating that they couldn't just cast a female actress. But nope, they had to die on this hill, demanding that the role of a psychokinetic white-haired sociopathic kid be cast with absolute verisimilitude in mind. So now our antagonist sounds like he's barely old enough to tie his shoes.
I wouldn't advise it, gentlemen. Not unless you want to end up like your friend, that is. Squashed like an insect.
You will cower beneath my might. Submit to my will. Now that Kid Notorious here has taken over this dog and pony show, his first order of business is the Ark, which he reasons to be a system to control the Earth's weather. And what does he want to do with it?
Please spare me the sentimentality and appeal to my emotions. It wasn't man who sent me on this course, Doctor. It was God who selected me.
Of course the kid believes that God sent him to destroy the Earth. That's what happens when you find the history eraser button. Crazies come out of the woodwork, and every homeless guy with tinfoil on their head gets to say, I told you so. Meanwhile, Yu is saved from Harpo by the Frenchman again, which leads to another impressive-looking action scene. That's actually pretty boring to sit through. Why? Because none of the major characters are involved. The reason why the fight between Yu and Raven was exciting, besides the sheer ridiculousness, was that there was a history behind them. Raven made it personal, got into his head, and thus their actions were punctuated with actual character motivation. Here, it's a long, protracted action scene where two minor characters, who offer nothing to the story besides padding the running time, duke it out in a snowplow. There's no investment, no stakes, and half the shots are so dark that you can't make out what is even happening. This strikes at the heart of what the main problem is with Spriggan. It's a spectacle anime that's just spectacle. We're about an hour into the film, and you could summarize what has happened in the plot in a sentence. And that's because not a lot has happened. Sure, there's confrontations and conflict, but so far, nothing rises out of them that is of any consequence. The last half hour of the movie is easily the worst part, and that's simply because what should normally take 10 minutes of film to show, takes 30 minutes to show. McDougal and some researchers go into the Ark, you follows them, and then for 30 minutes, the film just chases its own tail around and around and around. It's especially galling when McDougal and Dr. So Not Einstein here just basically talk in circles about playing God and ending the world. True, the art style and design of the inside of the Ark is incredibly striking, and the animation is some of the most unique I've ever featured on the show. But there's nothing going on! Ostensibly, the third act is just a prettier version of this.
Chosen one! I'm coming!
Finally, McDougal just says fuck it and starts the apocalypse, but Yu manages to blast his way through, and the movie pulls the drag chute again.
I've spent my entire life preparing for the task that now awaits me.
You're so deluded that you can't even see that you're just a tool! To the people who sent you here, you're just an expendable item, a pawn to be sacrificed!
No, Spriggan. The Machine Corps and the Pentagon were merely pawns in my game.
I am rubber, you are glue. Whatever you say bounces off of me. Would you just kill each other already? No, now we got to hit the brakes again so we can have a pointless flashback of Yu's where we find out that his backstory is basically Kurt Russell's in Soldier. This has nothing to do with what's going on here, and this fact means nothing to McDougal. If the film had this back when Yu was fighting Raven, then it might have been relevant, but Yu's character development ship has already sailed and sunk by this point. Thankfully though, McDougal has evolved to his Otomo stage, which means it's almost over. And indeed, Yu manages to get in and stab him, and with the Ark self-destructing, the Frenchman guides Yu back outside and into safety. The end. So, that was Spriggan. A whole lot of nothing. I have never seen so much work in artistry go into a story that was this starved for something to say. There's nothing wrong with telling a simple good versus evil story, and on the face of it, Spriggan tried to do just that, but it keeps derailing itself to try and put the film at feature length, so it pads and pads with inconsequential but pretty bullshit. I can never take away from how admirable the animation is, but it cannot make up for its lack of a story. Between this and Galaxy Express 3.9, I am sick to death of pretty but terribly told anime. So guess what? We're gonna have a return to form here on Anime Abandoned and talk about a title that is just horrible all across the board. Till next time.
Long live your Lord High Regent Sage! Long live Benetopia!